good morning, Jax. How are you today?
Good morning, Wendy. I'm blessed and better than ever. How are you?
Or good, good. We're back. It's Tuesday. Welcome back to putting the feel back in Tuesday, you guys. I think we're gonna put a lot of positivity out there with this. I am hosting with Jackson Sharon Okerlund. We are putting in some positivity. We are offering some different ideas of ways to look at things, different perspective, from different sides, spirituality, all that kind of stuff. So we're just finding ways to bring pathways to positivity back to people a little bit. Welcome. So Jax, what are you hoping for today?
Well, I just like you said, I cannot wait to put some good vibes out there, talk about some feelings, and like you said, getting on that path of positivity. Sometimes, we lose our way, we fall off that path, and most of us wake up in the morning and we want to do good, and just sometimes our vision gets cloudy and it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So
Yeah,
we're here to shed a little light. So
abs-
I did want to
absolutely.
say, sorry, Wendy, I did want to say I wanted to thank everybody who left a beautiful comment on our first episode. We haven't even really pushed the podcast whatsoever. We just kind of put some feelers out to people to go watch, and we got amazing feedback, and super excited to hear what you guys have to say about today's episode. So today's episode is going to follow a bit of a schedule here. We're going to start off. If some of you guys know who Wendy is, or Indigo Girl Tarot, as she also goes by, Wendy
Yeah.
does tarot card readings on her live streams, and she also does these things called oracle readings. So, what an oracle reading is it's cards with beautiful quotes and intentions on them. And I guess the way it works is whatever card the universe pulls for us today is the messaging meant for us. So Wendy's going to read us an oracle card today. We'll start with that, and we'll figure out what our group, everyone who's listening today on this Tuesday, will find out what our group intention is.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I'm following on that same theme. I decided to stick with my gratitude deck. Anybody who's been in my lives recently, I'm still trying to mix it up. But this gratitude deck I got recently in Vancouver, and it's so just quickly becoming my favorite. And the messages on it, you know what, you get used to hearing as you pull more. You just sort of get used to it, but I'm still like hearing them with new ears because they're so new. So
Love it.
let's see here. Yeah. There's affirmation ones, inspiration ones, reflection ones. So um yeah. Oh, we
I'm
got
looking forward
in.
to see what the universe pulls for us today. And it's even better that they're newer cards for you, because we can really kind of hash into what we're supposed to be feeling here.
It's exactly, well, we got an inspiration today. As I'm reading it, I'm like, okay, too perfect. So we got inspiration today. The world does not begin and end with what you know of it. There is so much deliciousness yet to discover, which is kind of what we're doing here. It's always great when it just hits, right? Yeah.
Let me read it one more time just so I can kind of fully
Yeah.
grasp it. Can you hold it up there one more time?
Yeah.
Just
And then I'll read the saying that's on it after. Is it backwards for you?
no, it looks great. So the world does not begin and end with what you have known of it. There is so much deliciousness you've yet to discover. Oh, I love that. That's a deep one. That's deep. That's deep.
Right. And then there's always just a little saying on the top of each card. And this one is, what luck of fate, instinct, or grace has brought me here in shade beneath hidden stars. That's
Love
just a quote
that.
on it by Laura Foley. Yeah, that's just, there's always something to learn. So when spiritual student for life, I'm always learning. It can apply to everything. It doesn't always have to be a spiritual thing. We are all constantly learning about everything in life every day.
especially with that little saying you said. It's cool how my mind always instantly goes to people who are like, how lucky am I to experience uh like, can you read it one more quick time? I don't want to misquote it.
Yeah, no, it's okay. What luck of fate, instinct, or grace has brought me here, in shade beneath hidden stars.
I love that. So what I'm thinking is people who typically say rhetoric like that, they're honestly all they're like in the worst circumstance possible, and then they're finding the silver lining. So he might be outside in, no home in the middle of the cold, but yet he's underneath the stars and still finding some kind of positive light to that situation. That's just where my mind goes. Like you could have the same guy saying, I'm cold, life sucks, nothing goes my way. And then you have the same guy standing right next to him and he goes, look how beautiful this landscape is, the stars. I love that. Great, great intention to go with our day.
Because that can go on either side, right? You can sort of question what fate or grace or whatever has brought me here when something good happens or when something bad happens. So it's just sort of a being present in that moment and being able to analyze it a little bit. Because sometimes when we start to analyze and bring it down to more detail, that's where the answer comes a little bit more clear, right?
So, with our intention, Wendy, how best do you think we should apply the first quote into our week and kind of grow a little bit
Yeah.
off of that?
So it's the first quote I think is even in two parts. So the world does not begin and end with what we know of it, first off. That's a big one. Sometimes we sort of get stuck in, oh yeah, no, I've got it, I know it, I've done that before, I've lived that before, I've we can get thinking we know everything to a certain degree, right? So just I would say first off, acknowledging that and knowing that there's nope, there's always more to know, and being open to it. Because again, sometimes we get stuck in it. So just being open to knowing that there is more and possibly even a more to what you already think as far as a different opinion or coming at it from a different side. You can adjust what you already know as well as keep learning new things, right? And then, of course, the second half, there's so much deliciousness to yet discover. The deliciousness in there is a representation of, I think, the how I take it, the passion and the fire behind. There's just so much more to know and learn, and it can be fun and exciting and whatever you want to put in there. So that just really, I think, doing it intentionally, bringing excitement, however you do that for yourself, into learning new things, keeping your eyes open, paying attention. That's how we learn new things. It's not literally sitting in a classroom. If you hear somebody, for example, talking about an opinion that might be a little different than yours, or you haven't had that take before, just pay attention, listen, be open to, things like that, I think is how we can bring that in. But the excitement of it and making it an uh, intentional thing for yourself. I think that deliciousness in there, bring that deliciousness in.
Yeah, like, you totally hit us with probably the most deep quote we could have got for all of them, truthfully, because like you were saying, so often we get caught in our routine and our life, and kind of what's in front of us is what we know. And you if
Hmm.
you do the same thing for a year, 5, 10, 20 years, you begin to just that's what you know, that's what you do, and that's it. That's who I am. And then we kind of forget to reopen our mind to new realities and new possibilities. And that's where the fruit of like the fruitfulness and the amazingness comes from, because
Yeah.
there's so much more to discover even within all the things we know. So always keep an open mind and not tying your personal feelings to what you know. I feel a lot of the times we take something we know and we attach it to ourselves. So when someone disagrees with us, we feel like we're being personally attacked. So just unattaching ourselves to our beliefs and just keeping an open mind, because even if we have been doing the same thing for years on end, maybe it's time to take this intention and have an open mind and see what kind of new, I guess, perceptions we can have on life.
I think sometimes when people have differing opinions, things like that, if they're not as open, I think they automatically think someone's trying to change their mind, talk them out of it. You're wrong. There is a lot of personal attack, I think, that goes on in some of that, and it takes away the opportunity for the possibility to maybe learn something from it. There's lots of people who, and I've done it too. I think I've done that in life too. It takes a little while to learn, but there is a possibility to hold two truths. It doesn't mean that you have to change your mind and, oh yeah, you're right, I do love black licorice that I've hated all my life. That's not what it's about. It's, oh wow, listen to the way you describe black licorice. That could be yummy. You're not like, no, you're wrong. We
Right.
need to be able to still hold just the possibility of the two truths, and listening to someone else's opinion or what they have to say or what they might be trying to teach you or a little lesson. There's no harm in listening to people and just hearing it out.
And we are by far not a politics show, but I think the greatest example of where you can find two truths is within politics, because you
Hmm.
have all kinds of different political parties. Some may think, oh, this party's evil, this party's evil, they're trying to
Yeah,
destroy our country. But at the
yeah,
end of the day, you have 50% of people who have this mindset, 50% of people who have this mindset. And who's to say what is correct? But that's up for our own values and beliefs to find what party we align with. But there's no party that's typically, more superior than the other. It's two different truths, and that's kind of what you hash it out. And whoever's truth or values or belief is more continental to what the country believes, that's kind of where you end up with
yeah,
on your political party. But that's where people start attacking each other when it comes
yeah,
to politics. That's why I say we're not a politics show, but that's
right,
like a great example to where having an open mind, listening to both sides, and where two truths can exist. I mean, if 50% of people believe one thing, you can't really say, well, you're wrong. It's like maybe we can both be right and find somewhere to meet in the middle. But it's about
right.
that open mind.
And when you have that I think idea or attitude in your head, oh, this person's attacking me because they're not agreeing with me. You also sort of shut off the idea that your perspective might also teach them something. It's not just them, oh, they're trying to change my mind. You're not, we just be able to have conversations, right? It's just like if you happen to belong to a certain religion, but then you hear someone else talking about their religion, there might be a nugget in there that you're like, wow, that's beautiful. You guys, whatever, practice that, you preach that. You doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're part of you're switching religions. We can all just sort of pick and choose. We have the luxury of designing our beliefs, our life, our every day. When we wake up, we have the luxury of doing that. So yeah,
Totally. And that's what I
yeah,
love about religion. Like you just said, picking things. Like I've probably picked so many different things from every different religion, because at the end of the day, all religion is supposed to be is how to live your life in a purposeful, positive way. So whether you're religious or not, it is, you can take bits and pieces of what they're trying to teach people and apply it to yourself. Oh, maybe I should be a little more selfless. Oh, maybe I should be empathetic. Oh, maybe I should have some compassion. Or maybe if my neighbor is 80 years old and can't shovel their driveway, maybe I should go, I'm an able-bodied person, knock on their door, help thy neighbor, whatever it
yeah,
might be. There's so many good nuggets of wisdom to pull from everything. So once we close our minds to like you were saying, having our minds change. Some people don't want to have their minds changed. Where I don't know about you, Wendy, but I'm on the complete flip opposite side. I love having my mind changed. Like I will ask people as many questions, I'll get as much information as I can, because if my mind does change, that effectively means that I must have learned something in order to have a new
mhm,
opinion. So constantly changing your mind and your opinion doesn't mean that you're someone who's not, their word isn't valuable. It just means that you're able to accept new information and adapt your opinion to whatever the new knowledge is.
You take or leave whatever kind of it. It's like the buffet. It doesn't mean you have to put everything in there on your plate. It just, you sort of take what you like and build your own. I think the ego can get in the way of that a little bit. The ego can sort of be like, oh, no, this is just where it's at. But we also have to remember that our lives constantly change. There's phases, there's ebb and flow. And so what you might have followed and really what really touched you and what you really stuck with in your 20s might not be the same thing as in your 40s, or so it's sort of just the opportunity to do a reevaluation. We all have to always just sort of check in, and it's supposed to be, not that there can't ever be, lows in it, because sometimes we learn something and we become, when we learn something, it puts a mirror in front of us and we're like, oh. So
Well,
it's not always sunshine and roses, but the deliciousness of it, it's supposed to be joyful and sort of fun. And if you put the ego in that and you approach it with someone coming up to you like, "Rah," then there goes the deliciousness. Yeah.
couldn't have said it better myself with that word ego. We could probably do a whole hour just on that word ego.
Yes.
Like, that's one thing where a lot of us are so attached to. We've all have an ego, and it's
Mhm.
somewhat healthy to have somewhat of an ego. But when your ego gets too big, that will stem to be some issues there. Like
Yeah.
being able to separate yourself from your ego, like that's why, like I don't know if you ever heard the term ego death, um,
Yeah.
where you're at you lose your ego completely and kind of start to see the world for what it is because you're
Yes.
not so like
Yeah.
attached to everything. I guess that's another word. Attachment is so big, especially when it comes to like Buddhism. I'm
Mhm.
not going to say the whole concept because someone out there is a Buddhist will be like, well, there's actually all these different values.
Yeah.
Um, Completely aware of it, but one of the big ones in Buddhism is for, got a little pamphlet here, is
Perfect.
attachment. The less things we can be attached to, the like better you'll feel in life. And like one of the main things you should not be attached to is something I preach a lot is material possessions. If you're so
Hmm.
attached to a material possession, and then let's say something happens to that material possession, you can always replace that material possession. But that's the way we should be thinking. But
Yeah.
sometimes we just think, well, this is the end of the world. My material possession is gone. Like when my van burnt down, the last thing I thought was like, woe is me. I was kind of like, poor
Mhm.
Marianne, but this is a piece of metal. I can replace it. I'm still alive. My girlfriend's still alive. And that was it. I loved Marianne to death, my van, but I was not attached to it. Because I'm sure I would still be in a depression if I was. That was the amount of memories I created in that thing, the amount of years I got to drive it, the amount of places in Canada that van has been. Like, and I
Mhm.
even fixed that van up with my stepdad, Wayne. So the van's
Mhm.
name was Marianne Wayne. And I wanted that van to live with me forever. So I'd always have a piece of Wayne with me. And when I lost that van, it was sad, but I guess it is what it is. You just can't get too attached to things.
Right. And everybody will sort of do a level of attachment for different reason. And that's okay. I think the more personality we attach to things. I mean, I know I do it. I'll have a full on, I mean, this is an animal, it's a little different. Maybe that's the wrong example. I have a full on conversation with Pax, my cat. And sometimes, Steve will look at me and be like, she doesn't understand you, right? But you just build up this this in your head. And I think especially for the case of Marianne, the story, and then like the art and the pictures and the jokes and everything that sort of happened with it, almost made her a person, right? And so it's how that attachment happens and why. And it's all right to have that feeling if there's a bit of attachment. It's just if you get down to the root of it, then it might help separate a little bit. But I think there is people who put a lot of attachment, including me, to like just objects. They have
Hey, well,
feelings instantly.
I got Marianne's everywhere now. Like, got a little van here. I got Marianne, literally the star of my story. I have
Yes.
like Volkswagen everything. So, we do make these things a part of our identity, but sometimes you do gotta let go when the time comes. If you don't
That's
let
right.
go, that's when things start to get unhealthy.
Right.
Here's
And
here's a couple buzzwords for people to remember today. Ego.
mhm,
Think about how much ego you have. Are you someone who has a big ego? Do you have a little ego? Maybe take some time to think to yourself. Attachment's another one. Are you someone who's
yeah.
extremely attached to your opinions and beliefs and belongings? Or are you someone who's able to just um last one, let it go? Are you
Yeah.
able someone who can just let go? Three
Yeah.
things to just maybe consider in your mind. If those things that are challenging for you, maybe that's a sign to go inwards and sort
Mhm.
through what could be causing that.
And one more quick thing on ego. There is another, I mean, it could all, like you said, it could be an entire podcast worth, but there is another side. Most times people think of ego and it is that big, I'm better than you type sort of ego, but there is also the other side of it. What I've experienced of it in the spiritual world is spiritual ego, and that is the one that puts doubt. You you think you're good in something and you're okay, I'm on this plane, I'm on this path, I'm going, everything's all good. Um and sort of maybe while you're going through a transformation or becoming one with this new idea or whatever path you're on, that spiritual ego, it just be aware of it. It can be there to like at you to bring in that self-doubt. You just have to, as you go on your path and learn whatever you're doing there, put it in check. You know what I mean? So normally, yes, ego does have, it is that other side, that bigger but spiritual ego is something to be aware of as well. Just, when that voice is going, identifying, well, wait a second, is that really how I'm feeling?
Right. And so I think this ties into actually another great word because there's a lot of key words that come into play when you're looking at spirituality and
Hmm.
feelings and kind of the unseen world, but it's still scientific, you know what I mean? You
Yes.
can't you can't physically see an ego, but we all know it exists and it's a real thing and so like we've kind of quantified these words. So I think another great word to think about is going inwards. And that's especially how you tap into these things is how often are we going inwards,
Yep.
and going through parsing through our ideas and our beliefs and our values and kind of doing the work inwardly. Do you have anything you'd like to say on going inwards? Any tips on how people can do this for the first time?
Well, that's it's again, this is why we're doing this. Almost every topic could be a whole one on its own,
Yeah.
whole episode. But um the biggest thing I think is being when we it's I think hard for people to go inward. I think that's on the same plane as, meditation or sitting quietly or whatever, because of the inner distraction, the inner voices. So I think some people just aren't into it, but I think meditation is important, and the more you practice that ability to silence, even if it's just for a minute, because the voices can't always just not be there, or the doubt or whatever. But it does take practice. But I think to truly go inward, what I found was that I needed the quiet, I needed the silence, because if there's some sort of message sitting on the bottom of the pile or something you're supposed to connect the dots on, you're not going to find it under noise of the rubble. You're just not gonna find it. It's there, but good luck. Like,
Yeah.
so not to say it's hopeless. I just mean it takes. And so the biggest tip though, is trying to work on that silence, concentrating on what you're trying to zero in on. What are you going inwards about? And I mean, I've led a few meditations on my lives, and it sort of does take practice. And I think there's a lot of pressure to like just be quiet. I have to be silent, I have to be sitting in this pose, and I have to be this and that and that. You can have a quick meditation in the shower as you're bathing. It, it doesn't have to be that sort of big. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. So trying to just different things work for different people, but concentrating on what you're really trying to zero in on. And if a thought comes in or a distraction, not, oh Lord, okay, this is it, I can't do this. What I do, my little tip, I take that thought and because I'm best visual, I work better that way. I like visualize myself literally putting that thought in a box and closing it. I'll get back to you. You know what I mean? So doing what we can, I think, to quieten what's not helpful in that moment helps us really go inwards and find what it is you're looking for at that time. Yeah.
Love that. I wrote down two notes there because one thing I wanted to say about meditation, and this is where I think feelings and going inward. This is where I think our camp loses a lot of people because as soon as you mention spirituality and
I
meditation,
know.
people instantly assume, the chakras and the gems and the um, horoscopes, and they just think, oh, this is just all nonsense. But meditation doesn't have to be where you're cross-legged and, going home.
Yeah.
Meditation can even just be your favorite hobby, whether that's running, crocheting, filmmaking, whatever it is that gets you in your flow state where you're just kind of like you get into a meditation where you're doing something that allows those distractions, which was the other note I took,
Yep.
distractions. When you're able to quiet those distractions and just be with yourself, think about your thoughts, and that's what a meditation is, just being able
Mm-hmm.
to do that inwards, going inwards. And so that's what I think we might have been talking a bit about last week is a lot of the times we fill every single minute of our life with a distraction to avoid going inwards, because when we go inwards, our ego gets hurt because we're not the person we want to be. So it's a whole cycle of
Mm-hmm.
once you start doing the work and trying to be the best version of yourself, you're able to, you know, meditate, accept who you are, and then fade out
Yeah.
those distractions. And then that's kind of where you find those hidden discoveries at the bottom of the rubble, those traumas and experiences we've been, suppressing. And
Yeah.
a lot of the time, like I've heard like massage therapists will say so much we hold in so much trauma and bad energy that like some people who are really good at massage can like literally massage trauma out of people to
Mm-hmm.
the point where they're in tears because something that they've been holding in for years is now kind of that knot. Like that's what a lot of these knots and kinks in our body come from, literal suppression of bad energy, and that energy needs to get stored somewhere. So if you're not talking to someone about your problems, or just like, that's why venting can be so good. You don't even need a solution sometimes when you're venting. You just need someone to
Exactly.
hear you so you can get that bad energy out of you. So, yeah, the more you can just be okay with the fact that sometimes life's not okay and eliminate those distractions so you can get to the root of the problem, um,
Mm.
that's when some real discoveries happen. But that's what I wanted to say about meditation is it doesn't need to
Yes.
be so like you think of going to India where you're all in a on your
Mm-hmm.
prayer mats and doing your whole
Yeah.
it can literally be, some people can meditate when they cook or when they
Yeah.
knit or
Yeah.
whatever it is, whatever your thing is, where it silences your mind, do more of that and you'll find more inner
Yeah.
growth.
And I mean, it certainly can be those things. Some people are getting the high end. that sort of level of meditation, absolutely. But you know, it is sort of the same as, I mean, I'm no doctor by any means, but I think it probably falls in the same category as you know, maybe some children's psychologists get kids playing, because when playing, you're not sitting there trying to force some sort of tell me how you're feeling or tell me what's wrong. You're just, they're playing, they're distracted, they're doing their thing, and there's that easier flow. So it's the same thing with what you said. If you're doing something that puts you in your zone or makes you feel, that's what you need. That's all you need, is just opportunity to sort of um, quiet and participate in that active listening. Yeah.
And I think you're trying to say reground yourself.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you know, just something that'll ground you back to reality.
Yeah.
So now I guess we'll kind of get to the next theme of the day, which is the whole theme of
Sure.
our podcast, where we're trying to put the field back into Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you, Wendy. I kind of have something I would like to discuss with you about what's putting the feel back in my Tuesday and what's really caught my mind. But did
Okay.
you want to start with yours and share yours?
Oh, doesn't matter. You brought it up. Let's start with yours. What is putting the field back in your Tuesday this week, Jax?
For sure. I love it. So for me, this Tuesday, it's perception versus reality. I've been super digging into that lately because it's been such a cool concept. And I'll try to elaborate my spaghetti brain on this. And maybe through that, you can grab some nuggets and we can go from there. But so from what it is basically reality is what's real, what's in front of us. This Gatorade bottle is here. This is what's in reality. Where if I'm someone, and so this Gatorade bottle is yellow. If I'm someone who may have color blindness, this Gatorade bottle to them could be red.
Right.
So we both live in the same reality, but our perception of this bottle is completely different. And so I think what interested me was I think a lot of people live within their own perception and kind of outside of reality. And the
Mm-hmm.
more times we check in and the more, I guess, self-awareness we have and constantly trying to ground ourselves into the true reality we're living in, whether that's uncomfortable truths or whatnot, the more we can really get into that reality, um, I guess there's a lot of growth that can come from that. I find that with perception, there's a lot of people, and I guess where this another comes in, or is they're blissfully ignorant and they
Mm-hmm.
just live with their own perception rather than in
Yes.
reality. And I don't know if you have anything you want to take right off from what I've said, but this has been really fascinating to me lately because this is something I'm very, I don't know what it comes from, but I'm constantly analyzing things in my head. I'm someone who, if I'm in a group of 10 people, I'll see one person who even their energy, like I'm just constantly analyzing, visualizing, feeling everything. And
Yep.
and then there's some people in the world where they're just kind of la di da di da, you know, and
Mm.
whatever is truly happening, that's just like kind of going on around them, and they're just
Yep.
in their own world, I guess their own perception rather than within
Mm.
reality. So um, that's just been really fascinating to me lately. And how do we get more people, or do people just prefer to be blissfully ignorant? Is this a choice they're making, or have they just not clicked yet to the fact that they're not truly fully living in reality?
That could be either one. In my opinion, it could be either one. I think it's also important to remember that maybe that isn't something that um like that blissfully unaware state might just be what they know. Is that how they were raised? Was there a model for them to look beyond, to share? So it might just be that that's what they know. Um, and and maybe it's also survival technique a little bit. Um, to not to just because I think that part of being blissfully unaware is I'm in my bubble, I'm good. We
Mm.
feel safe in our bubble. Here we are, we're good. Um, and maybe what's for some people different circumstances. I mean, it's a whole gamut, right? But maybe what's happening for them in their bubble isn't reality, but it's what makes them feel safe.
Hey,
So it can be hard to step out of it. But yeah, absolutely. Because like you said, that Gatorade bottle was yellow, maybe to a colorblind person, it's red. But both of those realities are true for those two individual people. Um, neither one of them are wrong, but the people that aren't colorblind might be like, okay, that's totally yellow. What do you, what are you talking, what are you talking about? But that just, just for the specific question you asked at the end there, that might be a little bit of a survival technique, maybe to purposefully choose that. And maybe people just, it wasn't necessarily taught or modeled, or maybe they don't know how, but, um, and that's part of the learning, right? That's part of the going after it and seeing what could be different, what could be, yeah.
are you hearing that bird?
I don't.
Okay, thank goodness. There's a parrot that lives literally above the paper roof of, so yeah, I was just screaming, but I'm glad it's not picking up in here. And so you actually, wow, I'm loving these conversations because I'm actually learning these lifelong questions I'm have, you're answering them. So
Mm.
living in our own bubbles, I guess if we live within our own bubble of perception, what
Mhm.
we know is what we know and we feel safe. But then the second you get out of that bubble and you're within reality and you're kind of vulnerable to
Yes.
everything, external opinions,
Hmm.
I think, yeah. So the moment you step out of that perception bubble and you get vulnerable in the real reality, it's hard for some people to like be in the real reality because life is hard. And so, it's easier to just to delete all the
Yeah.
noise. Just this is what I know, this is who I am, this is what I do. And
Yep.
but then I'm not like the reason I guess I don't say it's a bad thing, no one's a bad person, but the reason I would discourage this is because just living in your own bubble where you just don't learn and grow and change. Like we're all meant to evolve and mature, and there's so many examples of that in life, the butterfly and then the cocoon from the caterpillar.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's life has shown on so many different levels that creatures, whatever you are supposed to like metamorphosize into these greater beings. And if you're just stuck in like a bubble where you never fully matured as a spiritual creature, then you know like it might feel easier in that bubble to go through life, but at the end of
Yep.
the day, when you grab the tools out of the toolkit to be outside of that bubble, life just opens up completely.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And people might not always be in that bubble, right? Again, there's lots of different circumstances, personalities, disorders, whichever. But we might just go through phases. There may be times where we're like, yay, everything. And then if there's something going on, we need to retreat into that bubble. And we just need to remember that there is life outside the bubble. You don't have to jump out of it immediately. You just poke a little hole and peek through and slowly come out. But yeah, yeah, there just might be that to a certain degree that sort of safety, but there is also opportunity on the other side of the bubble, right?
Off what you were saying about, peeking out of that bubble because we feel safe and whatnot. And I think kind of a thing we touched on the last topic, but such of these things are such big lessons where you kind of have to keep going back to them. And I think a lot of it comes from the fear of being judged, where we don't want to be a part of reality because we just don't want to be we don't want, like we said again, going back to earlier, what we tie ourselves to our beliefs and what we know, And if we step out of what we know and someone might have a differing opinion, we're afraid of that judgment. Therefore, we don't even want to try. And like, I think it's such a hard moment. Like, I remember as a kid, there was my brother would be able to go out in the public in his pajamas. And I was like, aren't you afraid of like what people will look at you and think this guy's in his pajamas?
Yep.
And I guess as we grow, learn and grow up, I mean, someone who's 80 years old, this is kind of where I kind of learned it is someone who's 80 years old will never care what anyone has to say about them because they've lived a whole life, at this point they don't care what anyone thinks about them. Their
Hmm.
time may or may not be near, within the next 20 years.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's like, why am I going to care what that person thinks about me when I barely have much time left? So the faster we can get to the point where we realize nothing truly matters. I love those clips. I don't know if you've ever seen it, Wendy, where it's like someone will be like, "Oh no, I'm scared what people are going to think about me." And then they like
Yeah.
zoom out of their city, then they zoom out more, and then it's their
Yeah.
zoom out more, and then it's their continent, then they zoom out more, it's the globe, then they zoom out more, it's the universe, and they zoom out more, and it's the all the galaxies, and they zoom out more, and it's like all the way up to like we're just the pin drop in the real
Yeah.
fabrics of the entire existence, that the only thing that makes us think our existence actually means something is ourselves. And kind
Yeah.
of it almost is like decrepit in a way to realize that nothing truly matters. No one's going to remember us. No one really cares about us. um Besides for our loved ones and whatnot while we're here, but on a
In the
bigger,
moment. Yeah.
it's like it's not that serious because one day I'm going to be in the ground, and then, everyone's going to gather, share their stories about me, and, hopefully they'll say how great of a guy I was. And then the next day, everyone continues their life and
Mm-hmm.
life moves on. And so, you cannot live with that feeling that, oh, like, what's this person going to think about me? Well, in 70 years, if that person's opinion isn't going to matter about you.
Yeah. It's, we have our time right now, what's happening in our lives right now, these moments here. But yeah, I mean, zoom out. I mean, that it can be applied for everything, right? Like if you stub your toe and it's the biggest problem on the planet, you zoom all the way out there for a second. And even, even just zooming out a little bit, you see that when you zoom all the way out. But I think you're right on that. The faster we can get to that, and that's hard. I do remember, a few of my friends are a little bit older, and I do remember the kids would play on the playground, elementary school. You'd sit there and talk for hours. And I remember one day there was a friend. I don't remember how much older she was than me, but I was in my, you know, maybe mid to late 30s, and she was into her 40s. And just her talking about the freedom of not caring what other, she's like, I kind of got into my 40s, I didn't care anymore. Like I just do my thing. And it's almost as if I was like standing in front of someone I've wanted to meet my whole life. You're just like watching, like, really? I can't wait to be able to do that. And it's at the time seems like such a far away, far-fetched kind of thing. But yeah, the faster we can get to that, it does sort of take away some of that, it again, it also crests people aren't thinking of you the way you think they are, right? So all of that is under that same umbrella.
So
Yeah.
I think this kind of might lead us into this might get a little even very deep and kind of uncomfortable, but that's kind of what this space is all about.
Yep.
Do you think this ties into, I guess, acceptance of death? Like, I think the sooner you accept that one day you'll no longer be on this earth, the sooner you can get to that point that nothing matters. So a great example I have is there was this man who had a father. Let's say their name was John Adams. John Adams lost his father. He's standing in the cemetery looking at the tombstone of a man named John Adams. Two people with the same name, and he's kind of looking at the gravestone and he's just realizing to himself that like the name is the same, but he's already gone. And so one day he's just gonna have the same name in the tombstone and also be gone. So it's just like how, at some point we're just gonna be a name in the tombstone. And what the story is about is that guy staring at the tombstone, he had the realization that one day, like, I'm just gonna be the same as my father, pass away, and therefore, like, I'm not gonna tie too much to anything. I guess it's about being that people throw the word around free spirit.
Hmm.
You just can't be tied down. Once you let your spirit free into this whole web of energies, um, yeah, not afraid of judgment. It's really important.
Right, because if you're, especially when it comes to that, not afraid of judgment, um, and coming and being on the other side of that bubble, if you're really living your truth for what you think, if you think you've put your all in every day for what you're capable of that day, if you're following your truths, your beliefs, if you're passing those things on, if you're to your friends, your family, if you're doing all of those things and really putting your best foot forward for where you can, then even if there is judgment from someone else, it shouldn't matter. This is your space. This is what you're doing. You make your everyday count. You make your everyday matter. And so then, yeah, at the end, once you have passed away, those things are carried over. The day where the people are going to stand there and talk about you, um, they're going to talk about what you carried and what you passed on. That time matters. That matters. And then, yeah, on the other side of it, okay, so that's it. Where you've passed, you're in the ground, whatever, wherever you've gone. Um, and is that going to matter for you beyond what you've put into your everyday? No. So yeah, it for sure. I think thinking about those things when it comes to like judgment or living outside the bubble. I think a little bit of judgment comes, there's also fear. Like when you say, not sure if I should go outside that bubble, I might be judged. I think also there is a little bit of fear that goes hand in hand with that judgment.
Completely.
And turning fear into love takes a lot of practice, but it is important. And I think that sort of helps because it changes a mindset a little bit once you start flipping some fears on any topic, anywhere in your world into love. And then that starts to go under the gratitude umbrella. It becomes a little bit easier to do that once we feel a little bit more love to something than fear. It starts to change the way things look.
Totally. And fear doesn't actually need to be a negative emotion because fear can actually help us practice bravery. And
Hmm.
you like depending on who you are, like we should all want to have a level of bravery. It's, like you want to look at someone and be like, wow, that person's brave for saying their truth, whether
Yeah.
whatever that truth is. They're not living in fear and staying in their bubble. They're living their truth and they're using bravery and courage. And like I
Yep.
say, I love positive adjectives. You could write down 50 positive adjectives, 50 negative adjectives. And why wouldn't you want to live your life to where when someone describes you, they're using that list of 50 positive adjectives: courageous, brave, nice, kind, compassionate, empathetic, thoughtful, rather than grumpy, grouchy,
Mm.
rude, condescending. Like
Yeah.
you can be like, I've met someone who's condescending. Like that's an adjective you can give to someone. Someone might give to me the adjective talks too much, but whatever it might be,
I
um,
know.
like you're like, we are just physical words at the end of the day, and you can be those positive ones.
And that is that you're exactly right with the example of brave for sure. You can't be brave without having fear, without stepping out of your comfort zone. Um, and trying something. We there are lots of lessons we have to learn in life. You can't learn the lesson of forgiveness without being wronged. Like, even angry doesn't necessarily have to be, I mean, certain situations, but even angry doesn't have to be a negative. So yeah, there's there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack with that one. But that is true. It's yeah, gratitude is a big umbrella that holds a lot of those things, and it's okay to step outside of the comfort zone and feel a little bit of fear
Hey, well, the
sometimes.
comfort zone is where we go to, where our inner soul goes to lose its flame, is the comfort zone. The more we live
Mm,
outside that comfort zone, the more we're gonna grow as human beings. And that
yeah.
hit, like, what I think is the coolest thing. I don't even, I'll let you, I did my feel, but maybe I
Okay.
can say one thing and then I'll let you get to your feel.
All good.
What I think is the coolest thing in this world about feelings and spirituality is that you can't quantify, like you can't like point and look. Like I can show you this little head and it's real, but like courage or bravery, you
Hmm.
can't really see, well, this is bravery, you know what I mean? So
Right. Yeah.
um and then so what I think is so cool about that is what like energies is that that's like you can't quantify energy, but we all admit it and put it out into the world. So if you're around someone who's got such dark energy, like literally you could be in the room and just know like, oh, like I feel uneasy. I can literally feel
Mhm.
this guy's a ticking time bomb. Or you can be in another room and feel someone where you just know that nothing's going to bother them and they're just happy go lucky and just putting out such radiant vibrations that it's like
Mhm.
wow. And so I'm just so drawn to that because I guess I'm like an empathetic person. I'm a feeler, so I'm
Yeah.
really highly sensitive to those energies in the room. And
Yes.
I just think it's such a fascinating thing because to someone you might say, oh, I can feel your energy. And they're like, what's that mumbo jumbo? But like you
Yeah.
truly like people put out auras and energies, and I think it's just the coolest thing ever. And that's just something that you can't really dig, like you can dig deep on, but it's so abstract. Like we all know it's there and we can feel it, but it's like, what
Yes.
is it?
Exactly. And I think you don't necessarily have to believe in energies and all that stuff to just know it's there. It that also starts to crest into a little bit of science, what we're literally made of, and like literally, and whatever your gut feelings are, whatever your, I mean, everybody knows their own energy because it's they sometimes put a feeling to it. They wake up and they're like, I am grumpy today. So that's your vibe, that's your energy, that's your, so we all sort of acknowledge it maybe in different ways. Maybe some people don't believe on the outside of it, but yeah, 100%. There's what we're literally made of. It's energy. So
It's
yeah,
such
and
a
you can feel it. Yeah.
such a yeah, it's such like a it's such a cool concept, but it's like how do you even work through it? It's just yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome. So now I'll let you, Wendy, what has gotten to put your feel back in this Tuesday?
Well, this might be an obvious one, but I will start out with it. Gratitude. I'm gonna do gratitude. Just this, as far as like this week and this sort of period of time right now, just this opportunity to be able to talk about this kind of stuff that I love, that lights me up. With you, Jax, someone that I have a great respect for. Um, just knowledge is power. It's growth. And it's great. I'm just grateful to be able to share those ideas, put different ideas or vibes out there or ways of thinking about something. But it's also about, and it sort of goes back to what you were saying, under that umbrella of gratitude, there is that, you feel that sort of love when there's a little bit of alignment with yourself and acceptance of yourself. If this was like 5 years ago, this would not be happening. Me on a camera in front of you, you're putting this where? What? When I was a kid, if it was a presentation day, whatever, I could try to stay home.
Oh,
Nope, don't
true.
come at me in front of a, don't
And then, but then
in
it's
front of
like,
a
but why?
classroom. Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's that feeling of like, but why couldn't you get up in front of that class? You know, like, what do you
yeah,
think was different then? But besides what's different now, like, this is almost the same thing. Now you're up in front of the class. You've
yeah,
had the full I couldn't do this before. You had the growth, and now, like, look at you now. Like, you put in the work, and you're able to do it. What was the
Well,
moment?
well, that's a wide question because that was when I was so much younger, but it it was just the like, don't look at me. Like don't listen to me. Is it maybe what I did I not feel as prepared? Did I not think what I was talking about was valid, or what if someone disagrees? But I mean, I think a lot of in doing a lot of work with alignment and turning my fear into love, um, it has also helped quieten some of those voices of like, what if somebody disagree? Oh my God, you just said that. There's going to be someone who's going to make a comment. They're going to say this, and this. That process would go through my head constantly. And so then you're like, okay, I'm just not going to talk. Uh, so doing that journey and figuring out things and the ability to turn some fear into love and just know what I am valid. What I have to say is valid. It doesn't mean everyone has to agree with it. So who cares if, whatever. So not just with this podcast, but with everything. It's bled down into lots of areas of my life, which has created good change. So just the gratitude to be able to do this and for me to recognize that wow, look what you're doing. And it's fantastic. And this is a good example to step outside the comfort zone because look what could happen.
One thing I wanted to say about what you had just said was, when you're so afraid of presenting, you're going through that laundry list of your head of how all these different conversations will
Hmm.
go. And then you get up in front of the class, and that whole 4 hours of preparation of what you thought was going to happen, none of it happened. Everyone was actually probably pretty nice. People probably congratulated you. And it's like never it's
Yeah.
never the laundry list. It's like, why did I overthink all of this? Because I just did it and like this happened. And so it's like, it's just so funny how the mind works.
Well, being younger, that one's a yes and no. You are right, but that one is a yes and no. And I mean, everybody keep in mind that all these things that we talk about, I'm sure both Jax and I realize that everyone has different circumstances and there's things behind it. For me back then, I mean, the elementary school I went to was they were not nice. They were not nice at all, so that probably didn't help. But um, just and also sort of realizing a lot of these lessons and these like turning fear into love and gratitude. I know I'm saying it from experience, and I realize that all of those things are hard to practice or even grab onto as a concept when the other noises and are so loud.
Hmm.
Trust me, I get that. So just as all of those things quiet, and sometimes it's hard to pinpoint a moment. It was just part of the journey, but also realizing, do you know how much energy how much energy you spend trying to avoid or, you know, planning all these little things that could happen. You waste a lot of your much needed energy doing that.
Totally. And like, yeah, like when you just said, we're not this is what we're talking about is just generalizations of all
Mm,
these concepts. Like these are not personal attacks on anybody. We're just
right.
trying to put out ideas and thoughts to provoke people's own ideas and thoughts to hopefully be able to work through whatever they're going through. This isn't to
Yeah.
like we're better than everyone. We're trying to talk down on people. Like I think Wendy and I will be big preachers of that. We're not perfect people. We're on our own journey and we're just trying to learn like
Mhm.
everyone else.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here. Like we want to better ourselves, so we're having like-minded discussions. And like this is stuff her and I feel like have been studying for years and years. It's something we're passionate about. So we feel like we might have some insights to share, but like we don't know what anyone's going through, and these are
Mm-hmm.
just blanket tools to use. These aren't, you know, be all end all solutions. We're just trying to give people more ideas and tools to use if to work
Yeah.
through their everyday life. And another thing I like that you said, Wendy, was we kind of feel awkward taking up space. You know, we honestly feel like just our existence, our volume in the room is like a general annoyance to everyone else. And like, I would be better off just not being here. And that's a huge one. Once we feel, or once we give ourselves permission to take up some space and be confident in being in a room, that's a very, very freeing feeling. Because like some people, like you said, you didn't even want to speak, and that's like, you know how they say your chakras open, and like that's being afraid of having your voice. That's like a whole chakra closed, and the more chakras you can open and you can get to that third eye enlightenment
Mhm.
opening moment, that's where we want to get. But anything you want to say about that feel bad of taking up space?
Well, what you said about permission is people, I think one thing to remember is once you give yourself permission, that's it. You don't need to now take a poll and get it from everyone else. Um, I did that. I used to do that a lot. I might even be guilty of doing it once in a while still too. What being in alignment and practicing all these things. Not sometimes you can't be in that state all day every day. So, but I mean that might sort of happen, and when you've done something for so long, it takes time to undo it. But oh yeah, once you give yourself that permission, just try and practice. Okay, that's it. If you have a thought of like, okay, well, let's make sure someone else thinks it's okay. Nope, within reason, right? Not trying to like enter the bank when it's closed, but within
Yeah.
reason. Nope. Once you've given yourself that permission, don't start the poll. Just starts and ends with you.
And it's scary to be that outsider,
Mhm.
like, do I fit
Yeah.
in here? But I think like the coolest thing about life is you can just jump into situations and opportunities with 2 feet and see what happens. Be open to being criticized and judged.
Yeah.
Like one of the coolest things I think about being here in Grand Falls around in New Brunswick, there's a lot of it's a big French community. They all speak
Yep.
French. They got thick accents. And so I can speak French, but I don't even. I try sometimes. I do like to talk French around here, but I think everyone can instantly tell I'm an outsider. But
Hmm.
just jump into it, happy to be there. And if they want to judge me for being an outsider, then that's not even my issue. You know what I
Nope.
mean? So, I'm just gonna take up space wherever I go, because if I'm somewhere for something, like, and my purpose is to be there, I'm not gonna let anyone take that away from me and let me feel small for being somewhere I'm supposed to be.
Right. And that is the whole uh, part of giving your permission to be there. You have every right to be in that subway getting a sandwich or whatever is the same guy behind you. Oh, and look, they're talking French. I'm going to try speak a little French. Let's try and see if I can have a cover. You're just all these little choices you make are versions of giving yourself permission constantly every day of what you want or can or trying to do. And those are just your permissions alone.
I have this sweet little friend. His name is Bram. Well, he's not little anymore. He's a couple years younger than me. But we all went on a road trip in Marianne, and he kept picking my brain for different things. But one of the coolest things I thought we talked about was, like, let's say we'd go into a gas station. He's someone with really bad anxiety, so he just thinks everyone's looking at me, everyone's judging me. Like I feel so awkward even just going into a gas station because that I'm not meant to be here. He's like, I feel like when I'm in the lineup to even pay, someone's gonna like come up behind me and be like, "What are you doing here?" When it's like
Mm,
just buying
yeah.
my drink. But then,
Yeah, yeah. Just doing my thing. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like we just think we're doing something wrong, even though we're not. And
Yeah.
what I just thought was so awesome of that, because I was telling him, I said, if you are meant to be somewhere, let's say we're going in that gas station and you have to buy a drink and you're standing in line, and then let's say someone did come up to you and was like, "You're not supposed to be in here. Like, why are you in here buying a drink?" At the end of the day, the issue isn't even with Bram, it's with that random unhinged stranger.
Yep.
So, like if you know what you're supposed to be doing and anyone were to judge you or say something to you about that, it's like you can deeply know the issue is not with me, it's actually with the other person. So I'm just going to keep
Hmm.
my peace. And that's when I just think like, just feel bad to hear someone say something like that, that
Yeah.
they just don't even feel like their presence should be anywhere. And it's like, I love when people come in. I mean, there's levels to it. You don't want to like take over the whole room and conversation and
Hmm.
be the everyone, look at me, I'm the center
Right.
of attention. You definitely want to add in value where you can and speak when spoken to kind of
Yeah.
thing. But like I love people who are just that's what I love about you, Wendy. You know, you're who you are, you've accepted it, and now you take up your space accordingly. And like
Mm.
once people have the courage to do that, you can meet some amazing people because like
Mm,
it's hard to meet people like that's what I loved about the journey. So many people would come out that were just like, I want to meet this guy, see what he's about. And then I'm a
yeah.
like-minded individual. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Someone that would come out to the side of the highway and like no one felt like they were taking up space and everyone wins. And like, yeah, the
Yeah.
human experience is a beautiful thing. We need to connect and share experiences and it's this is a
Yeah.
huge world. Everyone can fit in it.
And I appreciate you noticing that. It definitely has not always been that way for sure. And that's why I may think maybe what brings the passion of wanting to share with people. And just to go back really quick with your example with Bram there, I'm sure there was lots of levels of his own little permissions all day that got him into that store. Either way, he got to the gas station because he needed whatever. He gave him permission to get to that gas. He gave himself his own permission to go there and get the gas or whatever. Then he also gave himself the permission to go into the store and stand in line with his Gatorade. You give other people the power the second you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here buying Gatorade. No, you made all your choices to get there because that's what you need, want to do, whatever. But you give someone else more control than they deserve and your energy that they don't deserve when you let them take your permission slip away.
So here's amazing what you just said, giving people that control over you. And I heard this amazing quote where you wouldn't let a stranger come up to you and like if you were just doing your thing, you wouldn't want a stranger to come up to you and like grab you or like give you a hug from behind, like you did not give them that control or permission over you.
Yeah.
So if you don't want a stranger doing those things to you, like controlling your body, why are you letting a stranger control your mind?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's like the same thing. Our body, like we almost have more care for our body than we do our mind, and we give our minds away to people on a whim. And like that's where people, the
Hmm.
new term is you're living rent free in someone's head
Yeah.
because like yeah, they're not giving one thought about you and you're just dwelling over something in your mind and you're giving someone else complete control over yourself. And
Yeah.
we need to be in control of ourselves.
And that can take, experience that comes with age, that comes with things that are modeled for you or where, you know, you find the people to look up to, etc., things like that. So again, there's lots of circumstances that get you there, but I think, as you start to practice all of these things we talk about, but definitely that giving somebody else your control, your power. Once you start practicing not, doing that experience, just like everything else, just makes it easier. It's like a muscle, gets stronger when it's used, right?
Well,
Yeah,
that's the whole general arching thing of this whole thing. It's the practice of 1,000 lessons. So
yeah,
like you're not going to get good at a slap shot on your first slap shot. You need to do 10,000 slap shots. You're not going to get good at loving yourself if you've tried once. You need to
yeah,
try every single day at loving it's a daily practice. And
yeah,
like it's hard because that's like 1,000 different lessons when it comes to all this. And then you need to try and actively put your best foot forward to practice all this stuff on a
yeah.
daily basis. And then it becomes so much. And that's why I love
Yes,
it. It's like a lifetime journey because like it's so you can't win the game. You can only get
yeah,
better at it. And we have to spend our whole lifetime trying to get better at these things. But I think the whole thing where it comes to like religion is they give you a set of things to practice. They tell you exactly what to practice. And if you practice these things, this is how you're going to have a good life. And we're
yeah,
not a religion, but this is what we're trying to do, kind of pick,
right.
take and pick from different things to live a good life and just
Mm,
kind of telling everyone these are things that you should try and practice to just be live a happy life because I think like my favorite quote, we often suffer more in our imagination than in reality. And I
Hmm.
guess the whole point of this podcast is to try and diminish some of that suffering for people because
Hmm.
life is so hard already. They say in Buddhism that life is suffering, and life is so hard already. Why would we make it any harder on ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah. That is a very good, that is a very good way to sort of think about a good quote, good thing to sort of live off of. Um, sometimes we do, sometimes we can't help it. Sometimes it is a bit of an active choice to make ourselves have the day worse than it needs to be, but it's just about that flip. Can we flick the switch? Can we make that conscious choice? And sometimes I think there is a lot of pressure to like, okay, well, but I've been this way for so long, or look at these are all the things that I wish I could change or work on. It'll just get so big, and then people, well, forget it. The there is no time limit. E- Even if you're not like into all like changing some things in life or whatever, you are literally going to learn something new every day until the day you die. You just are. You're going to see a new stop like road sign. You're going to read something in a book. You're going to read an article. Literally, you're just going to keep learning. It's just going to happen. So take the pressure off of, okay, I have to do all of this now. I want to change. I want to do this, and I have to be able to figure all of this now. No, take that time pressure off away. Meet yourself where you can, and just start somewhere. And if that leads to something else easier the next day, great. Just keep going.
Oh, I love that. The like it doesn't all need to happen right now. Like that's
Right.
where I think the biggest pitfall is for a lot of people who want to get on this path.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm ready to make the leap. Then they wake up the next day and their cat peed on the floor and they're like, "Yep, I give up already." And it's like, "No, like you can't just let it's a, things happen and it's like
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't need to be like, well, I was in a bad mood. Now I give up trying to be in a good mood. It's like
Yeah.
you can't give up. Like I give myself like I'm probably not going to be the person I want to be until I'm like 80 years old. So I have zero
Mhm.
pressure on myself to like be that guy now. I'm just going to try my best and hopefully for the next 65 years of my life, I can keep learning, growing, and discovering and practicing these things we're preaching. And then
Yep.
hopefully by 80, I'm that person and I probably still won't be. But it takes off a lot of pressure when you think this needs to happen right now. If I don't wake up tomorrow as happy as Jackson or Wendy, then it's
Yeah.
not even worth trying. But
And I think that definitely was me at, before that level of patience a little bit. I've had to learn. I mean, patience has always been maybe a little low on my meter, but I have to learn it a little bit more. And I definitely I've always, like I said, this has sort of always been in the crosshairs, things about ways to change or how I would like to be or spirituality, all those things. It's not like I've walked around the whole time like, no, everything's, I'm all good. Um, there was this level, I think, of impatience. I definitely held that. It took some time, and I'm not sure. Maybe just sort of realizing it as I'm saying it. I think perhaps because a big bulk of it I think happened for me during the pandemic, like the some of the big major switches. Lots of work before that, but I think some of the major switches, and that might have been the ability of time, kind of, because a lot slowed down for a lot of people. But that's not to say you have to have that. It's not like we need to wait for the
mhm.
next pandemic, but just yeah, be patient. Keep it the active choice to show up for yourself every day, and if you can't one day, that's totally fine. Doesn't mean we got to pitch it.
Love it. That we before we're probably gonna have to slowly wrap things up here,
Yeah.
but that is something super interesting for next week as we might have to start diving into cultivating patience. Like it's such
Yeah.
a important quality, and
Yeah.
how do we all get there? Like how do we get to be a more and more patient person? And I believe it is good to have patience. I believe it's
Yep.
extremely good to be a patient person. And some people it's challenging to cultivate patience. That'll be maybe something we can dig into a little deeper on the next episode. Wendy, did you have
Absolutely.
any closing thoughts for all of our wonderful listeners?
No, I think just you hit on some of those buzzwords. Let's just keep, sort of those buzzwords in mind. It's almost like the glossary at the back of a book or that
Yeah,
you had to do at the end of your book report.
I
Just
love
build
that.
this little glossary, right? Our buzzwords and just again be patient with yourself and just keep showing up with that and just realize that there's joy and excitement in learning in different perspectives and trying something different. It's coming at it from that sort of attitude that can sort of make that difference.
Love it, Wendy. And I love what you just said, glossary. We might actually have to put our heads together and make one of these glossaries for
Yes.
people to tap into. Because
Hmm.
even just a list where you can print out and stare at it every day, like just
Yep.
those affirmations are huge
Yes.
to doing that. So maybe, guys, keep your eyes peeled for our glossary. We'll talk about cultivating patience on the next episode. But with all
Yep.
that said, everyone, this was Putting the Feel Back in Tuesday. I hope all of
Episode 2.
there it is, episode 2. I hope
Yeah.
everyone can take a lesson from today and carry it into your day and do what we said. Practice makes perfect, but don't be too hard on yourself if you aren't where you're at, where you want to be right now. But that's it, guys. That was Putting the Feel Back in Tuesday. We will see you guys next Tuesday.
We'll see you next week.